Hello and good morning. I welcome you all in our today's lecture. Today, we will be talking about the rest of the functions that we have already started talking about. For example, previously, we talked about different kinds of functions of language, especially the expressive function of language, informative function of language, vocative function of language. So today, we will start our discussion with static function. Actually, it can be achieved, you can say, or it can be designed in two different levels. First of all, here you can see through its actual target sound. And secondly, through its metaphors. So we can design, we can achieve static function in these two ways, especially in two different senses. So these are the senses. So first is actual or imagined sound. It may be the actual sound of the word, or maybe the imagined sound of the word. And then it can be achieved through metaphors. We can use metaphors to make it beautiful, to beautify the language or expressions. So aesthetic function, aesthetic means the aesthetics as subject. It means the science of beauty, right? How actually we can we can actually decorate something, or how can we embellish something? How can we beautify something? So in the aesthetic, we talk about it. So also in the language, we can follow the same philosophy, and we can achieve this aesthetic function in the language through these actual or imagined sound. And here you see in the sound, when actually you want to achieve this aesthetic function, and in the sound section, you can see we can have rhythm, then balance and contrast of sentences, clauses and words. And all these also play a very vital role in the aesthetic aesthetic function. So I hope that rhythm you understand, rhythm, balance, and contrast of sentences. You know it very well, rhythm, especially in poetry. We have rhythm, and also in we have to have balance and contrast of sentences. That means there must be balance of coherence and cohesion in the sentences. That's actually we can achieve balance. Then clauses and words, they're also very important when you want to achieve aesthetic function, because if they're not grammatically appropriate, and also if you cannot produce beautiful sentences, then aesthetically they are not functional. Or maybe they're functional but not effective. So we have to consider this. And the sound effects consist of, when you talk about sounds, then there are other things. They consist of onomatopoeia, alliteration, assonance, rhyme, meter, intonation, and stress. And some of these play a part in most types of text, especially in poetry, like nonsense poetry for children and children's verse, and some types of publicity like jingles, TV commercials. These are very important, especially onomatopoeia, alliteration, assonance, rhyme, meter, intonation, and stress. These are very important for these kind of genres. Is there anyone who can tell me what is onomatopoeia? Onomatopoeia. Can you tell me what does it mean? Onomatopoeia. Who can tell me? Can you hear me? No. Can you tell me what is onomatopoeia? You have read this, right? These are in the literary terms, very important literary terms, or you can say basic literary terms that we must know as a student of English literature. You cannot forget them. You must remember this. So, onomatopoeia. What is it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Can you define it? Or can you give me an example? Let me give you an example. It's a sentence. The tick-tock of the clock. Talk of the clock. Remember the definition? It's onomatopoeia. The tick of onomatopoeia okay, as I was saying, if you want, you can just keep it mute form. Keep the video on, just mute it. Keep the video on and mute it. Thank you. So, here we see, onomatopoeia, I gave you an example that is the tick-tock of the clock. So you can see the tick-tock. So, tick-tock, what does it mean, tick-tock? You can see the very basic definition of onomatopoeia is the words that are described as they sound. Words that are described as they sound. So how does a clock sound? How does a clock sound?
TikTok.
Exactly. So that is the thing. So tick-tock. So you see, this tick-tock is an example of onomatopoeia. There are a lot more other examples we can give. So for your understanding, so you can see the aesthetic function we can attribute, especially in poetry or in different kinds of literary pieces, literary writings. We use onomatopoeia. Then we have alliteration. What is alliteration? What is alliteration?
Sir, repetition of consonant. একটা letter বারবার করে আসে same way.
Repetition of the consonant sounds, especially at the beginning of the words, or the words, at the beginning of the words. Can you give me an example?
Sir, paper, pen, poetry.
Paper, pen, poetry, something like that. Okay, good, great. Now, then what is assonance? Assonance. Assonance is the repetition, or yes, the repetition of the sounds. Especially, I mean, it's not at the beginning. It can be anywhere in the sentence, anywhere in the word. In several words, assonance can be used. It's just like alliteration. The basic difference is that in alliteration, that is related with consonants. But in assonance, it is not always related with consonants. Consonant sound. So in assonance, we can see mostly it's vowel. Okay, it's the repetition of vowel sounds, and it's not at the beginning. Not necessarily that it has to be at the beginning, but it can be in the middle of the words and any other parts of the words. Okay. For example, son of guns. Son of guns. So you see S-O-N of then gun, G-U-N, gun. So sons of gun, so, or sons of guns, even if I say it in that way. So here you can see the vowel sound up. See, son, gun. Is it at the beginning or in the middle? At the beginning or in the middle? In the middle, exactly. So you see, son, gun, in the middle. So that is, and you see R sound, these are vowel sounds, right? R sound is a vowel sound. So assonance is a repetition of vowel sounds in the middle or maybe at the beginning, but that's a repetition of vowel sounds. Then rhyme, you understand, that is rhyme. Actually, we use it in the rhyme and rhythm. These are used in poetry especially, and especially rhyme, we find it at the end of the stanza or at the end of the couplets, lines. Got it? একটা কবিতার উদাহরণ দিতে পারবে বাংলায় যেটা শেষে মিল আছে? ছড়া বলো, বাংলা ছড়া বলে শোনাও কি ভাই?
আম পাতা জোড়া জোড়া মারবো চাবুক জোড়া।
ওকে, তাল পাতা জোড়া জোড়া
আমার পাগলা ঘোড়া।
ওকে
স্যার আম পাতা স্যার।
ও আম পাতা, ওকে। হ্যাঁ, আমি ওই বড় জিনিস ভাবতে পারি তো, তোমাদের মতো এত কৃপণ না। তাল পাতা ভাবছিলাম, আম পাতা তো ছোট।
স্যার আমাদের ছোট নদী চলে বাঁকে বাঁকে।
এটা একটা ভালো এক্সাম্পল, আমাদের ছোট নদী চলে বাঁকে বাঁকে। আমি বলতাম আমাদের বড় নদী চলে বাঁকে বাঁকে। তোমাদের মতো ছোট ভাবে না। বৈশাখ মাসে তার হাঁটু জল থাকে।
জল থাকে।
হাঁটু জল থাকে।
বাঁকে বাঁকে এবং থাকে, So these are rhyme. Okay. Now meter is you can see it is used especially in the line of the stanzas. Stanzar ভিতরে লাইনগুলোতে আমরা মিটারটা ব্যবহার করি, তাই না? আমরা যেমন বলি stressed, unstressed, or unstressed, stressed, অথবা stressed, stressed, unstressed, unstressed, just like this. So this combination in a sentence, especially in the poetic lines, we call them meter. And intonation equals that fluctuation of your voice. It can go up, it can go down. When you ask questions, it can go down. Even sometimes when you express surprise, it can go up. You understand? Intonation.
Yes, sir.
So that is the thing. And also a stress is, that is the stress on particular word or a syllable. If you just divide or classify if you divide a sentence, a word in different syllables, then on a specific syllable, you have to put emphasis. That we call a stress. So all these are related with sound. So they can be actual or imagined sound. So with the use of these literary devices or linguistic devices, we can achieve aesthetic function of the language. This is very important. You have to know them if you really want to translate. If you really want to translate a particular text from one language to another language. So that's why you have to have a good knowledge about it if you really want to be a good translator. Right, then jump to the next slide. Now, in many cases, it is not possible to translate sound effects unless one transfers the relevant language units. Compensation of some kind of usually possible. So you see, in many cases, it is not possible to translate sound effects unless one transfers the relevant language units. That means you have to transfer the relevant language units from one language to another language. If you don't transfer those language units, you'll not be able to translate them. You have to transfer them from one language to another. So you see, compensation of some kind is usually possible. In translating expressive texts, that means full of expressive function. So in translating expressive text, in particular poetry, there is often a conflict between the expressive and the aesthetic function. You see, the expressive function that actually it is the emotive, or that expresses your feeling. So your personal feelings are expressed. So the function that we call expressive function of the language. And then we also have aesthetic function. Sometimes they overlap, the expressive function of the language and the aesthetic function of the language. So that's why it says that there is a conflict between. But we can resolve this conflict if you have a good command over the language, and also if you know the earth and the literatures of both the languages, then in that case you can resolve these conflicts between these two different kinds of language functions. So that's not a difficult thing. Now the poles of ugly literal translation and beautiful free translation. Now you see where actually we find this problem. One is truth and beauty. Either you can go for the literal translation and the beautiful free translation. So in both cases, actually, we can see these kind of conflicts exist. Right? Do you have any question? Do you have any question?
Sir, conflict between expressive and aesthetic, sir.
For example, you can put a sentence, and that sentence can be, for example, for you, maybe you think that it's an expressive function that expresses just the emotion. But for someone, maybe that is aesthetic function. He can find all those linguistic, or you can say the literary devices that so far we have discussed, like on a metapair, alliteration, assonance, rhyme, rhythm, all these things. So that's why there is a conflict. Sometimes some kind of conflicts are observable between these two different kinds of. That means you find it difficult to determine. Is it an expressive function, or is it an aesthetic function? Understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In this slide, you can see descriptive verbs of movement and action. since they describe a manner, are rich in sound effect, like rate, rush, scatter, mumble, gasp. These are just different kinds of words that just keep giving examples. And you look at this, but not heard to translate unless the word is simply missing in the other language, as this is a universal feature of languages. Now see, descriptive verbs of movements and actions, since they describe a manner, are rich in sound effect. Descriptive verbs, that is, if you utter that verb, then you can imagine that what actually it is describing. You can see it, you can feel it. That's why I say that that is descriptive. For example, if I say someone is participating in a race, so race here you can say race means to run, to rush. Scatter, in Bengali we say charidike chhoriye deya. Scatter, to spread something out in different places. Scatter. So when I say scatter, you can imagine what does it mean. Somebody will think that he is scattering rice for the crows in their field, right? In their yard. এরকম হয় না? আমি যখন scatter বলি আমার কাছে মনে হয় যে আমরা যখন স্ক্যাটার বলি, ধরো আমি যদি বলি স্ক্যাটার, তোমার কাছে মনে হয় যে ও বড় লোকটা খালি টাকা পয়সা ছড়াচ্ছে, কারো কাছে মনে হচ্ছে কেউ ভাত ছড়াচ্ছে। যেমন আমার কাছে, আমি যখন স্ক্যাটার নিজেই যখন উচ্চারণ করছিলাম তোমাদেরকে বলবার জন্য, আমার মাথায় ওটা আসলো যে আমার মা যখন ওই বাড়িতে খুলনায় যখন অনেক মুরগি পালতেন, উনি যে ভাত ছড়িয়ে দিতেন সকালবেলা ওদের খাবারের জন্য, ওই দৃশ্যটা আমি ইমাজিন করি। যেটা ডেসক্রিপটিভ না, ডিসক্রাইব করে না, শব্দটা নিজেই কোনো কিছু বর্ণনা করে, মানে ও নিজেই তোমার মধ্যে that will evoke an image in your mind. I mean, these kind of words conjure a kind of image in your mind. So whenever I utter these words, you can see, you can visualize the whole thing. Understood what I'm saying? Shubhasri, Ritu, Kadya, Shema, Lavani, can you understand it? Is it okay? Lavani, is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's great. Great. All right. I can see you. I told you to turn on your videos. If it is not a problem, please turn on your video. Okay, now, where lies the problem? I've been using the descriptive verbs. Now, can you tell me what does it mean, mumble? Who can tell me? What does it mean, mumble? Can anyone tell me the meaning of the word mumble? M-U-M-B-L-E. Anyone? In our language, we don't have in one word, but the meaning is bir kore kono kichu bola. আমরা অনেক সময় নিজের মনে করে যেমন বিড়বিড় করে বলি না, পাশের জন্য তো শুনতে পেলো না, কিন্তু নিজে নিজে বলছি বিড়বিড় করে,
অস্পষ্ট করে বলা আর কি।
এক্স্যাক্টলি, থ্যাংক ইউ। এটা আমরা বিড়বিড় করে বলাও বলি, ডিকশনারিতে ভাবে লেখা আছে স্পষ্ট করে বলা বা ছোট ছোট করে একটা কিছু উচ্চারণ করা। যেমন ধরো প্রেমাকে ওর মা হয়তো কখনো বললো যে সারাদিন খালি ঘুমাস, ঠিকঠাক মতো ক্লাস করিস না, ঘুম থেকে ওর। প্রেমা তখন উঠে চোখ রোলতে রোলতে মনে করো যে বিড়বিড় করবে। এই মহিলাটা বেশি বুঝছে, তাই না প্রেমা?
আর ও বলবে অসহ্য।
ও এটা কেউ বেশি বলে না, অসহ্য বলে।
জি স্যার।
ব্যাপারটাই অসহ্য, এতবার অসহ্য বলে তো অসহ্য। পরের শব্দটা হচ্ছে গ্যাস্প। What does it mean? Gasp. You can say. Anyone? Gasp. Yes. You can keep with the word in Bengali, no problem. What does it mean, gasp? G-A-S-P. Gasp.
Okay.
Apano.
Exactly. Exactly. Fine. You're right. Thank you. Okay. So, for example, when Fine actually he does a lot of workout. I mean, he does workout for a long time. If he works out for a long time in gym, so he will gasp. For example, 2 or 3 hours at a stress. Okay, just to burn his calorie and minimize his fat. Right, Fine?
Right, sir.
Okay, so he will be gasping. Fortunately, we have these words in our language. We have the meaning of these words in our language. So, meaning of these English words are found in Bengali. But if we don't have the meaning of these words or words like these, the descriptive words like this, if you don't have the equivalent in our language, then there will be the difficulty. You have to face the difficulty as a translator to translate because you don't have that word. We don't have that the meaning of that word, and it happens, especially for onomatopoeia and these kind of words, especially these kind of descriptive words. Maybe in English they have, we don't have it in Bangla. Can you hear me?
जी सर
Right. Let me jump to the next slide. Now here's the in nonsense poetry, the sound effect is more important than the sense. Okay. Here actually we have very difficult example. It's from French language, but I don't want to read it. Honestly speaking, I can't read it. Okay. Now, but we have the translation. Let's say here you see, it says a ferret nibbling a carrot in a garret. What does it mean? Do you know nonsense poetry? How does it sound? I can give you an example. Humpty Dumpty sat in a well. Have you ever read this poem? Humpty Dumpty sat in a well.
yes sir
So what is this Humpty Dumpty? There is no such thing called Humpty Dumpty. And you can also find nonsense poetry in Alice in the Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. And there is a very famous book, I forgot the name, it's called Nonsense Poetry. You can find lots of these things. In our language also we have this, especially Shukumar Rai in Bangla. In our Bangla literature, you can find that some of his poems are very interesting, very funny, full of onomatopoeic expressions, and aesthetically they're very clear, but it sounds very weird. And sometimes you will find that we don't have those kind of words in our vocabulary, in our dictionary. They are not found. They are nonsense words. Understood? Just to create a ludicrous effect, or you can say it's a kind of mockery, or you can say to cause laughter in the minds of the reader. So sometimes we have this kind of nonsense word. So you can also find it in the sound effect. It's very important, especially in nonsense word. The sound is very important. Here you see carrot, garret, ferret. You see, maybe there is no such word ferret and garret. I've never seen it, but carrot is there. So a ferret nibbling a carrot in a garret. So a ferret, actually, there is no such animal that is nibbling. Nibble means ঠোকর মেরে মেরে খাওয়া মুরগির মতো. So আমরা এখানে মুরগি বসাতে পারি. A hand nibbling a carrot in a garret. Garret, what does it mean? Garret? Maybe a garden, maybe a yard, but we don't know what is a garret. So you see, ferret, garret. See, nonsense words. Hello, do you follow me?
yes sir
Have you understood what I said? Okay, is it okay?
yes sir yes sir
Okay, fantastic. All right. Now, in children's poetry and in the art for art literature of the end of the 19th century, so there are lots of examples. There's just given like Goethe, Swinburne, then Verlaine, Dawson. So these are the first, actually, they wrote this kind of nonsense poetry. Now, there's euphonious beauty precedes in other expressive texts, that the expressive precedes the aesthetic function, but if the translation is ugly, or we see that there is cacophony, the purpose of the text is defeated. That means when you want to translate it, especially if you want to translate a nonsense poetry, it will be very difficult, trust me, because those nonsense words might not be found in our language, and we cannot have the proper nonsense word in equivalent. You have to create every single equivalent for every single nonsense words, because those are from English. It doesn't have any meaning. They are not found in dictionary. They're just nonsense words. Okay, so how will you translate them? You cannot translate them. For example, Humpty Dumpty. Humpty Dumpty translation কি হবে? বাংলায় অর্থ আছে?
স্যার হামটি ডামটির একখানে পাইছিলাম, লেখা ছিল যে নাদুস নদুস মানে গোলগাল এমন আর কি, জানি না।
ওটা পরে ডিকশনারিতে ঢুকছে, দুটো তো আসলে ননসেন্স ওয়ার্ড। হাট্টি মাটিম টিম, তারা মাঠে পাড়ি দিন, তাদের খাড়া দুটো সিং। হ্যাঁ তুষার, could you please complete it? Yeah, read it, recite.
স্যার কোন ছড়াটা বলবো স্যার?
Right now you said it, হাট্টি মাটিম টিম.
স্যার
Okay. Say.
হাট্টিমাটিম টিম, তারা মাঠে পারে ডিম, তাদের খাড়া দুটো সিম, তারা হাট্টিমাটিম টিম।
All right. Now, if I ask you, Tushar, what is Hattimatim? Hattimatim team. What is it?
স্যার স্যার এটা তো স্যার একটা কাল্পনিক স্যার একটা
Is there any meaning? Is it a name? We don't know. Or is it an animal? What kind of animal is it? You know it?
নো স্যার আই হ্যাভ নো এনি আইডিয়া।
It's a nonsense poetry, and it's very interesting. It sounds very, very funny, right?
Yes,
Right,
sir.
sir.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we heard it for the first time, so actually it caused laughter. We laughed. So you see, it's very difficult. If you try to translate this poem in English, you have to keep this Hattimatim team as Hattimatim team. Right? What I'm saying? Because there is no translation in English. You cannot translate.
ইয়েস স্যার।
Metaphor. Now we'll talk about sound part is called. Now it's metaphor. Now metaphor is the link between the expressive and the aesthetic function. So the link between the expressive and the aesthetic function. This is the expressive function of the language and the aesthetic function of the language. So metaphor actually it will build the bridge. It will connect the expressive and the aesthetic function if you use metaphor. Through images, it is also languages only linked with 4 of the 5 senses. Linked with 4 of the 5 senses. What are the 5 senses? What are the 5 senses? You can say.
স্যার
So hearing, seeing,
Okay, listening.
না, লিসেনিং, স্পিকিং।
No, I'm not talking about language skills.
সরি স্যার, সরি।
5 senses. Pancho
তো
indriya.
চোখ, কান, নাক, মুখ,
চোখ,
ত্বক
কান,
এসব।
চোখ,
Okay,
নাক,
Sharmi,
কান,
can you say it in English?
Sir, eyes,
Eyes for?
nose,
seeing,
eyes
sir.
for seeing,
Okay, good. Then?
ear for hearing,
Hmm?
ear,
Tongue for taste.
Yes, sir. Tongue for test.
Skin for touch.
yes sir, skin for touch.
Nose for smell.
Nose for smell. So these are the five senses, right? So here, see,
Right, sir.
out of these five, the 4 actually that will help you to create. I mean, if you can create metaphor very successfully with the 4 senses. What are those? He said by producing tokens of a smell. So you can write something in your writing. It can be poetry. It can be descriptive writing, narrative writing. For example, you went to your village when actually you were young, when you were when you were a kid. You were very little at that time, so you went to your village, and especially in the winter season, you see in village area, they have a very specific kind of smell, and that is very nice and interesting, right? গ্রামে শীতকালে একটা অদ্ভুত স্মেল লাগে না বিকেলের দিকে, ওই স্মেলটা কিন্তু
Right, sir.
জানি না তোমরা বোঝো কি, বুঝতে পারছো কি বলছি?
So different smells, sir.
সুতরাং আমি লেখাতে এরকম একটা metaphor create করতে পারি using these sets. For taste, we can do the same for different kinds of food, we can say, and we can create taste, metaphor taste, based on taste. Then also we can create metaphor based on touch, like far, skin, okay? For example, if I say the silk cotton, is there something like silk cotton or silk sari, right?
Right, sir.
Yes sir.
Right, sir.
So when I say silk, I mean, what did you feel? Is it very uneven or it's very hard? How did you feel? Soft and very
Soft,
Very
sir.
soft, sir.
soft and it's very glazy.
Yes, sir.
Silk clothes, you see, they're very glazy. They're very you can say glossy, rather I should say, right? And also soft. So you see, touch. You can feel the touch. So I can create a metaphor using this touch sense. Okay. Then sight, your eyes. So it's very easy to create that kind of thing. And as well as the sound. Also, you can create metaphor that is related to sound, like bird, bell. For example, when I say bell, what kind of bell actually did you imagine? I'm saying bell. What comes to your mind when I say bell? Right now, কি মনে আসছে যখনই বেল বলছি, কার কল্পনায় কোন বেল আসছে, কি আসছে?
So ring bell.
Ring
আর
bell?
বিড়ালের গলায় ঝুলানো বেল, এটা মনে আছে।
Okay, so তোমার মনে আসছে ওইটা। Okay, মেয়েরা?
ঘন্টা
ঘন্টা
ছুটির
ঘন্টা
ঘন্টা,
মনে
exactly.
হচ্ছে।
আমার কাছেও হঠাৎ করে ছুটির ঘন্টাটা মনে আসছে। তোমাদের কারো কাছে ক্লক বেল মনে হয়নি না?
না
আমরা ডাক মাথার ক্ষেত্রেও ব্যবহার করি একটা শব্দ, যে ওটার নাম নেই।
নারুবেল।
I didn't want to say it, but you said it. It's okay, no problem. All right, that's funny. Now, so you see that language consists of metaphor, connects the extralinguistic reality with the world of the mind through language. So when I use metaphor, so it's a kind of extralinguistic reality, because in reality we can use just the language. I eat rice. She goes to university. So it is a very plain and simple sentence. There is nothing extralinguistic. But when you use metaphor, it creates a different kinds of feeling. It's very evocative. Understood? And also it conveys image. So that's why that is extralinguistic reality. So it's in between. It's not completely expressive, you can say. You cannot say it's completely aesthetic. So it builds the bridge between these two different kinds of language functions. Okay, now is it clear?
Clear, sir.
Fantastic. Now, there is another language function that we have to take into our consideration, that is fatigue function. The fatigue function of language is used for maintaining friendly contact with the addressee rather than for imparting foreign information. So instead of transmitting information from English or French or German texts or any kind of language, any other languages. I'm just mentioning these three so that you can relate to it very quickly. So from these languages, actually it's not about that transferring information from those texts to Bangla. It's rather than actually we try to maintain a friendly contact with the addressee. That means the readers. Okay. So as a translator, with this kind of language function, you try to establish a kind of rapport or connection or communion with the readers. Apart from tone of voice, it usually occurs in the form of standard phrases. So you see, it's not only the tone of voice. Tone of voice is there, but besides that, we also have a standard phrase, form of standard phrases that you have to use, or we call it faticism. In this spoken language, therefore in dialogue, especially in dialogue we use it. For example, how are you? You know, are you well? So you see, you know, so we mentioned these kind of things. Have a good weekend. So greetings, or when you bid somebody adieu, or farewell. Okay, so when you bid someone farewell, when you take part from a group of people, when you, during your departure from a particular place, so we say have a good weekend, or see you later, see you tomorrow, lovely to see you. So when you greet somebody, so it's about greetings. It's about wishing people in different ways. Understood what I'm saying? So these are the fatigue functions. These are very important to establish a kind of rapport connection between the translator and the addressee. Yes. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
Sure. But you have to remember one thing, that you see that some faticisms or this kind of fatigue function of the language, they're universal. Some of them, they're very cultural, culture oriented, or you can say that it's based on the particular culture. In every culture, actually, you cannot use the same greetings. Understood?
Yes,
For
sir.
example, if you go to, especially in Saudi Arabia, this kind of Arab Islamic country, and if you just greet people by saying them good morning, maybe they will answer, but they will not like it that. First of all, you greet them with salam, and then you say good morning, good afternoon, whatever you like. So you see, it's completely cultural. Understood? This kind of fatigue function. So you have to consider these cultural functions as a translator when you are using these kind of expressions, phrases, or idioms, or idiomatic expressions. Got it? Understood?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
In written language, criticism attempts to win the confidence and the credulity of the reader. So if you really want to win the trust of the reader and the confidence of the reader, then you have to use this kind of fatigue function, feticisms. You have to use it in your language. It sounds very natural. See? When you use this kind of expressions, it sounds very natural. So, and here it is, of course, naturally, undoubtedly, it is interesting, important to know that, obviously, don't you use this in the language? You know, everyday conversation, we use it, right? For
Right, sir.
example,
Right, sir.
One of your friends, I mean, she participated in all the class tests and she did really well. And already you have to come to know about all the grades, accumulated grades from all the classes and midterms. But your final exam is, yet to be done. I mean, it is not there. So you're waiting for the final exam, but before final exam, up to midterm, for example, one of your friends, his or her marks is very invariably very good. So you can say undoubtedly in this semester, X or Y or Z, actually she is going to place first, right? Or she's going
Right,
to
sir.
Right, sir.
stand first from our batch. So you see, use undoubtedly, naturally, like this, of course, obviously, genuinely, right? So these are also
Right.
emphatic functions. So you have to use them to make it natural and also to gain the confidence and the trust of the groups. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, one thing is that as a translator, you have to consider one thing. Don't try to overdo. So as a translator, you must know that where actually you have to delete some expressions, where actually you have to translate it in a different way, or whether actually you are going to omit it, or whether actually you are going to keep it. So as a translator, you have to think about it, and you can take that liberty as a translator if it is not word-for-word translation. In the word-for-word translation, most of the time actually you cannot omit most of the things. But if it is sense for sense or any other kind of translation, and obviously for imitation, that's completely, that is, we call it adaptation. So they are actually, as translated, we take the complete liberty to translate it in the target, from the source text to the target text in a different way. Based on the storyline, he will use his own language. So that's a different thing for imitation or the adaptation. But the other two, sense for sense, translation and word for word translation, and you have to consider the thing in a different way. So you need to be very careful while you translate this. Got it? What I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
That's correct. So do you have any questions?
No, sir.
Fantastic. In that case, I would like to finish our discussion with this metalingual function. Here you see, lastly, the metalingual function of language indicates a language's ability to explain, name, or criticize its own features. When these are more or less universal, that is, sentence, comma, verb, etc., though they may not yet exist in languages which are only spoken or have little contact with others, there is no translation problem. However, if these items are language specific, for example, supine or ablative or elative or optative, they have to be translated in accordance with the various relevant contextual factors like the nature of readership, importance of items in source language, the source language and the target language text, likely recurrences of target language text, ranging from detailed explanations, example and translations, down to a culturally neutral third term. Now, here, what it says is that metalingual function. What is that metalingual function? That means that is beyond the language. You have to think. There is something, especially, you see, a language's ability to explain. It indicates a language's ability, particular language. It has some kind of capacity to explain name, to explain and to name or to criticize its own feature. So you have to know how to criticize your own feature, the incapacity of your own language, where are the shortfalls or pitfalls that you have to identify those. And if a language can identify those, so that's the metalingual function that you have, especially in sentence, comma, and sometimes in vocabulary, in verb. For example, maybe when you try to translate a text from German to Bengali, you'll find that the verb that is used in German, there is no such kind of verb in Bangla. It doesn't exist. Then you have to know what to do. So this metalingual function, you have to cope up with this, and you have to know how to deal with this. Now, here we see that it's though they may not exist in languages which are only spoken, maybe they're only spoken, they're used in the spoken language, they are not formal, or have had little contact with others. So maybe people don't know about those features that much. So there is no translation problem. If some kind of things are very rare and people are not using them, then you can exclude those, those very exclusive linguistic features. Language function, you can omit them. And as a language, your language must have this kind of function, how to deal with this. So that is the meta-language function of language. That means a language's ability to explain, name, or criticize its own features, how to explain its own features, how to name its own features, how to criticize them, how to talk about, evaluate them. Okay. For example, here is elative or optative. These are very much pragmatic terms, and if you study in future the linguistics, then there actually you will find it. For example, optative, that is the expressions of your wish, the things that you desire. So these are optative. So you have to come to know about these things. They have to be translated in accordance with the various relevant contextual factors of nature of readership, importance of item. That means you have to consider the readers, their culture, their cultural context, and the source text, source language, target text, target language, all these things you have to consider. Then you have to go for the translation. But if you find any difficulty, if things are not there in your language, that is there in other language. So this is called metalingual function. Now note also that the source language expressions signaling metalingual words, for example, strictly speaking, in the true sense of the word, literally, so-called, so to speak, by definition. So you see, sometimes we use it, the metalingual, strictly speaking. In the true sense of the term, or in the true sense of the word, literally, he is a liar. We say that, right? বাংলা বলি না যে আক্ষরিক অর্থও একটা মিথ্যা, মানে ও যে খালি conceptually মিথ্যা হইতে আসলে সত্যি সত্যি মিথ্যা। Or sometimes we say, strictly speaking, we don't have, strictly speaking, actually, we don't have that kind of rules and regulations in our country. So you can say in this way, okay? Or you can say, by definition, he's a lawyer. By definition, he's a professor. Okay. Or you can say, by definition, he don't work. Okay. Understood? Well.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
these are the expressions that you can use in the metalingual function. It is also useful to divide text by topic into 3 broad categories. So metalingual function will help you to divide the text into three broad categories. One is literary or institutional, and literary, then we have institutional, and then we have scientific. The latter, that is the scientific, including all fields of science and technology, but tending to merge with institutional texts in the area of the social sciences. Literary texts are distinguished from the rest in being more important in their mental and imaginative connotations than their factual limitations. We know it very well, that especially in the literary text, we go for mental and imaginative connotations or different kinds of meanings. But in the science, actually, we go for denotations or denotative meanings, that is very specific meaning. But in literary text, we can deviate from the denotative meaning and we can mean many things using the same expressions. Right?
Right, sir.
So metalingual function actually will help us to identify that whether it is a literary text, whether it is an institutional text, or whether it is a scientific text. So that will help us in that. Okay, I think I'm done. So far so good. We're done with this lecture. It took us 3 lectures to finish this discussion, and it was quite important, and I hope that you enjoyed it and you have to come to know different kinds of language functions and text categories, and it will help you to be a good translator in the future, I believe. What do you think? What is your opinion?
So this is very interesting text, sir.
So you see, usually we don't see language in that way. So from now on, actually, whenever actually you're reading any text in English or in any other language that you are capable of, you'll find automatically this kind of, I mean, you can see the this kind of, I mean, analysis using these language functions. So you'll try to find out that what kind of text is it. Understood what I'm saying? It will come to your mind automatically from next time. Trust me. If you really, I mean, want to practice it, I mean, as a translator, if you really want to shine, or if you really want to earn your effectiveness as a translator, so in that case, it will come to you automatically. But it's a matter of practice. If you don't practice it, you won't be able to do it. Trust me. It's a matter of practice. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You know, next lecture actually we'll try to practice some. I mean, using all this knowledge. So far we have discussed in all of our lectures previously. So we'll try to use some of the knowledge from there, and then we try to practice translating, okay, from English to Bengali or Bengali to English. Since all of us actually, we know these two languages, that means since we're bilingual, English and Bengali, so we'll practice translating from English to Bengali and Bengali to English in the next lecture, okay?
Okay, sir.
All right. So thank you very much. Thanks for your patience, and hope to see you next time. Okay. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.